Hey guys, we are here at the Comic Den with Mr. Joe Woods. Joe, tell us a little bit about the Comic Den and like what you have done here and why you brought this level of like comic book awesomeness to this area.
Take us back in a trip through time. To the beginning.
Dude, I can just tell you guys, I've been loving comics for going on 50 years now. You know, I fell in love with my first comic. I grew up over in Watts. My mom took me to like this little corner market when she first bought this house over there. And there was a comic book rack in the little mini mart there, you know. So she ended up buying me one. I think it was like a Defenders Annual, you know, back in those days. And I was just so fascinated by the colors and the characters, Valkyrie, I think Thor and the Hulk and all those people were in there. So it was just an instant love for me. So when I used to go to school in the morning, I would either go to that market and grab books, put them in my folder and go to class, or there was another liquor store where I would walk half a mile to, you know. Now, what I didn't know better of at that time, because I was going so frequently at that time, like I didn't know when new books were releasing. I was like, okay, well, I'll just get this one. I'll get this one this week. And then sometimes you go in there, you'll find new books. But it was that start right there to just, I fell in love with comics from that point on, you know. And then when I got in junior high school, I got into trading comics with friends of mine. And then I found out about John Byrne and George Perez and, you know, finding art like Dave Gibson and all those type of guys. Dave Cockrum, you know, all those guys reading X-Men books. But if it wasn't for guys like John Byrne and George Perez, I followed their careers, you know. So when Byrne left Marvel and went to DC and started doing Superman, I kind of started following that trend and I got more into DC. But I was reading DC because George Perez was doing Teen Titans.
Teen Titans.
Sure. You know,
So that's a great run.
I was also,
classic,
you know, into that. And I used to, me and my friend, we used to always do comparisons. So like, doesn't Taskmaster kind of look like Deathstroke?
Like Deathstroke,
you know, with the orange and blue and stuff like that. Not knowing, like, as we got older, we would really put those together, you know, and just say, okay, that's his art style, that's his color scheme.
Sure.
And they're all like jumping back and forth between companies.
Exactly.
So you would say in the beginning you were drawn more to DC characters and comics, or a little bit of both?
I was really drawn towards both, but I think it was the Marvel that really started me off because it was the X-Men. I was reading the John Byrne X-Men. And then I remember I would trade books. Like I got a trade for X-Men 109. I traded this dude my whole series of Contest of Champions, which was one of the first limited series that was out, had I known that back then. But he traded me an X-Men 109, and that was kind of like the first appearance of Vindicator, you know.
All right.
That way, me and my buddy, we started really getting into Alpha Flight at that time, you know. And then when Byrne started Alpha Flight #1, we were just right on board with that kind of stuff. Like, and so it was Marvel, you know, the love for Wolverine, following the Phoenix saga, the Proteus saga, the Days of Future Past, and then when he left, we still followed with the Emma Frost and the introduction of Kitty Pryde coming into the X-Men, all the way to Storm becoming the Dracula, to the Brood. I mean, I can go on forever.
Of course.
We just really went into the whole X-Men. That was my whole thing, was like collecting X-Men. But then when I saw the jump, I just followed Byrne over and I started to get into more of the DC characters. And I was always interested in art because I would like to see this artist's version of that character. So when you saw, you know, I wonder what John Byrne's Batman would look like. I wonder what George Perez Batman would look like.
That was the question.
I wonder I knew what Neil Adams Batman looked like, you know, because it was a trendsetter. You know? And it was just all about the artist at that time. But then in the 90s, when McFarlane and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, these guys jumped in, you know, the art just really intensified.
It was an elevated.
And
I think it's like that art style comes to people's minds sometimes when they think about comic books, even today.
I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, those guys, especially Jim Lee, I think I was reading something. He broke a Guinness Book of World Records for that X-Men #1. It sold like probably 5 million copies or something like that.
We still see back issues of that come into the shop
all the time.
Yeah, so, you know, with those guys setting those kind of trends and starting Image Comics, you know, that elevated art on a whole nother level, you know. And so, of course, I jumped ship because I was a big McFarlane fan. I was a big Jim Lee fan. I mean, you saw like if you're in this game from day one, you can see the elevations and the evolution of comics when they change. Someone told me that they were also maybe considering making a movie off of the Image guys when they started.
Oh yeah.
Image guys. That would be such an awesome
I'd love to
movie.
see
Absolutely,
that.
like a documentary or like a narrative film.
I hope it would be a movie. Pick some actors out and
that would be so cool,
right?
Wow,
that would just be awesome.
Yeah, the comic book industry needs a movie, a biopic about the creators.
Yeah, that would
seriously.
be. I mean, even if they go do a Jack Lee,
I was going to say
Jack Kirby or
Stan Lee. I was going to say the fact
awesome.
that there really hasn't been a Stan Lee movie or like a Jack Kirby film about their lives and what these guys went through back in those early days.
Yeah, dude.
Man,
I feel like it's safe to say that we will get that movie. I feel like that is just something that's sitting out there.
If the right
ready.
people's going to be watching this podcast.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Get on it.
Pick up the
Screenwriters.
rights to get that movie. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. Let's start it off from the genesis of
Let's
how
go.
that
Those
started
are
off.
some difficult rights to get on. We all know the history with the rights between comic book characters
and movies
and credit being
and
given on who's created certain characters.
That's true.
It's a rabbit hole.
But that's just a fascinating story too.
Yeah,
like
indeed.
totally, that's some drama right
Indeed.
there.
That in the Image, but really from there on, we all know what the 90s did to the comic industry.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it was.
So really at that time, the art, with the Extreme Studios that Rob Liefeld was running, Top Cow, Mark Silvestri, you had all these extreme artists out there.
Well, they saved the industry in a lot of ways too.
Yes, but then I did notice like the sink of Marvel. If you
Yes.
saw what DC done, they killed Superman, they broke Batman's back.
Batman's
They were
back.
just doing all type of stuff at that time.
Yeah.
But right around the middle point of the 90s, the writing just wasn't there.
It fell
for
off.
me, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It did.
And it wasn't really until I can say I almost sunk. I was like, damn, man, I can't find anything really good to read. Right
Sure.
now, but then when you start getting the evolution of Kirkman and Bendis with the
ultimate line,
dude,
we've talked about that, man.
That right there,
It saved
put me back in all in.
yes.
back into
The early
comics.
2000s.
Those early 2000s.
That's because they were having conversations about it and they knew something had to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
sales were plummeting and
They'd
Yes,
sold
you
off most of the rights to their films,
Yeah,
like all of it, all over the
dude.
place. So you now, after years and years of reading comics and appreciating comics, you have your own shop. How does that feel? Like, what's that like?
when did you open the shop?
I opened up this shop in mid-February of this year.
Whoa.
So it's only been going on 6-7 months going on right
Sure.
now. So I manage stores for a living. I ran CVS. I worked for CVS like 14 years. And
Okay.
I worked at Michael's Arts and Craft
Sure.
for the last 5.5 years before I opened up the store. But it was really the love of my son. I love my kid, and I'm trying to inspire my kid to go after what he loves to do. And what better example could I be to go out and go after what I love to do? Even with all this gray on my face, I told him, I was like, dude, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to challenge myself.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a tree hugger. I was hugging on to that 401k. I was hugging
Yeah,
on
of
to
course.
I was hugging on to, my
Yeah.
lifeline.
a little safety net.
But sometimes you got to take a risk and step out there. And I would advise anybody that's into entrepreneurship, take that risk because I don't want to go back. Don't wake me up if you think I'm dreaming. Any of that stuff like that. I am so glad I made this move because I truly love what I do for a living. Even though I don't make the money I used to make,
Sure.
the joy, the passion, the happiness is there. Oh, sometimes I can't wait to get in here and talk to people.
Oh, man.
You never know who's going to walk through those doors.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why we started this podcast, and we are, we're trying to have creators, artists, shop owners on because we want to spread that passion around.
And we want to make sure there's so much negativity, especially in the art community.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with artists, everybody's got a negative take on a movie or a book or whatever. And yes, those videos get views, but you know what makes life better? Passion and joy about the art that we spread and we enjoy.
Because I'm sure we talked about earlier that there can be definitely some negativity in this fandom that's a little bit unsolicited sometimes, and it's
the one thing I can honestly say, I try not to badger anybody's work too much.
Right.
I mean, if it's not for me, I'll just say it's not.
It could be for someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But someone put their hard work, their mind,
Exactly.
and their effort into being creative, and that's something that a lot of critics don't do. You know what I'm saying? They're so fast to put you down and knock what you down doing.
I feel the same way about film.
That person was direct and taking something in their mind,
right,
and having the drive and the ambition to go after and setting that vision and trying to make it tangible. I mean, DC has really stepped their game up.
They really have.
Man. I got to give kudos, DC.
Yeah,
kudos, DC.
I think it's because creators are listening, and the opinions of the readers does matter.
It does.
And even though they can sometimes steer in a more negative light, there's also the positive. And what's great is I think that the publishers are doing their best to listen.
Yeah.
And at least with independent comic book publishers like Image, it's like they're giving these writers also a chance.
So much freedom to be creative.
That's what I was telling somebody the other day. I was like, without Marvel and DC thriving, these independent guys don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, we need the big two to do well.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I believe that when King Spawn comes out by McFarlane, it's only going to do so well because Marvel and DC movies right now. Yeah. Man, I give kudos to James Gunn for finally giving us a Superman movie that watches like a comic book.
Exactly.
You know
the hope.
I went to go watch that movie again because I was marveled by how comic book like it was,
right?
And it's just truly like watching an adventure. I'm not knocking Henry Cavill or Zack Snyder.
It's a different take.
That right there was like one of my favorite comic book movies I went to go see.
And I think that is evident of what happens when someone who cares about the property and cares about the comic books, cares about the characters and the storytelling.
You stuff to go read.
Exactly.
Like this people calling me like, "Oh, do you have Strange Adventures?"
And he did that like last year. He was putting out books to get you ready for the Superman.
And James Gunn also knows that he has a responsibility and that he's looked at as a pop culture icon now. And so when he says something like that, he knows that this is going to help the industry. People are going to go pick up these books. And that's huge. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you on the show as well, because when people watch and they listen to this, I mean, really, though, it inspires them to follow those passions, to start reading and supporting, bookshops.
Well, at the end of the day, I started all this first with a nonprofit called Soul Geek Empowerment.
Okay.
Soul Geek Empowerment is the theme is you don't got to be a young geek or an old geek to be a soul geek. So every nationality, every race, every color, every background, every creed can be a soul geek.
Cool.
But the goal of that was to set a trend of that new generation of readers, writers, artists, and collectors. So what I did was I would go to any school. I mean, I've been in schools from Compton to Watts to L.A. to Inglewood, and I give free comic books away, to the kids. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing? We're giving them reading material, helps build a vocabulary, helps get their creative juices going.
Yes.
And then we encourage those kids, to open up that godlike ability to be a creator and create and breathe life into their own characters, And when we did that, I had one school invite me to another school, and then I was in everybody's school.
Yep.
And now that just helped me. I remember I was doing an event one day, and I had all these people standing in line, and they had money in their hand, And it's like, oh, we want to buy you. But I say, no, if you ever see me out in public, I'm not asking you guys for anything. You might can buy a Comic Den T-shirt or something like that. But I say I give the stuff away because I give to receive, And so the next question was like, well, where's your store at? I mean, and so many people start asking me, where's your store at? Where's your store at? I was like, well, I think it's time for me to step out and try to open up my own store.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I was going to open up a store like over in near Venice Beach off of Lincoln in Venice over that way.
Right.
But the guy kept playing with the prices and stuff. It was a nice location because it had lots of traffic, car traffic and stuff like that.
By the beach.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that tanked. So I have a nonprofit friend of mine who runs this cause business over here. And she told me, well, why don't you talk to my landlord, And I talked to the landlord, and he said, hey, I have this opening in the corner right here. And as soon as I saw the place, it had carpet and stuff on the ground. But I said, okay, my new books are going to go over here.
And you could see it, the vision.
And I just start merchandising the place,
Right.
And I said, now it's all about just bringing what I see in my head and putting that to life. And after a few months of just setting things in place and setting up accounts and stuff like that, I opened this baby up. And
really, we've seen it on social media. Follow Joe, follow the Comic Den on social media because you've made a really big splash in this community already. And you said 7 months.
Yeah,
people have flocked and really.
I'm just a regular guy, folks. I love comics. I mean, I geek out. I mean, I read. I'm just like any other collector, except for I'm just out there just trying to push it. Before I check out, I'm going to take this comic book thing as far as I can
hell yeah.
do, to every community, to every platform, to everything that I can possibly do.
So what do you see as far as the future goes for the Comic Den? You have any big plans coming up for?
Well, we're always conjuring up stuff. I think social media has just been a huge blessing for the store and the platform. I eventually want to get more guest artists and guest writers in here, kind of sit them here, ask them a few questions.
Sure. That's what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
I want to get my own exclusive blank covers, get a little Comic Den
that
logo on
is
them,
always fun,
and get those guys to kind of like come in and draw an exclusive cover. I have a couple of covers where I met David Crowns in, and he gave me some blank covers. So I've already had 2 artists to do their own covers of Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer.
Yes.
But I kind of want to expand out on that to just get, like, if I ever have a guest artist, hey, sit down and, exploit your talent and let's see what you're able to do. You know? And just have an auction for those covers, or just, hey, these are one of a kind. These can't be duplicated,
Yeah.
And I think that just adds a form of originality to your store, and I think that adds a new following because people will see you doing new things, I also like to find what's up and happening, like, new writers, new artists, people who are out here to work. I'm all about community, and I'm all about the local guys. So if you had a new comic book that you were trying to get out there, I would sit you down here and you can tell us all about your book.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Like
Here's the pitch.
Because there's so much talent out there right now,
of course.
And something that's got to go beyond what we see now. Something's got to keep this.
Well, there's always a new pioneer, somebody that's pushing the boundaries of what this art form can do.
And I think it's good getting that message out there, because there are a lot of people who are so talented and they're afraid to show their work, or they don't think that they have the right opportunity to do so. And when there's a place like this, you can
comforting and comfortable space to express that. That's you can't put a price on that.
It's funny you said that, because I had Johnny Parker. He's a artist for IDW. He's drawing Godzilla and stuff like that. But he's also a school teacher. So he had his class to draw this book called Motherboard. So we invited them to the store to do a signing here. So because it was 20 pages and 20 kids did a panel.
That's
extremely talented.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Stuff like that. So I meet this one kid. And he's like, "Oh, well, I did page 17. I know it's not that much. Not I said, "Well, you stop right there." I said, "Don't you ever insult your hard work like that." I was like, because whether if you draw a character that looks like Dilbert, or you draw a character that looks like
Jim Lee's Batman,
what I'm saying, there's a community for every level of artist. What I'm saying? So what you may be doing, you may just fit that right type of person that's looking for that artist.
Yep.
I mean, there's so much art out there. So there's art for kids. I mean, even adults read certain, what I'm saying? That's like watching an episode of The Simpsons and watching an episode of Family Guy or something like that.
Yeah.
There's 2 different art styles. Then going to watch manga. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It evolves, but it's a community for it all, though.
Yep.
Yes.
And I was trying to explain that to him. I was like, you just got to find your community that this art style works for. I wanted to open up a store like almost 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I went out there to get a loan. They didn't give me no loan and all this other kind of stuff like that. And I just said it just wasn't the right time. But this time, I knew it was the right season for it, because I opened it up. I met Cheyenne the Geek. We started a TV.
I was going to say, we got the TV show going on here.
I met Joel Adams, Neil Adams' son. He donated like the shelves that are in the store. I mean,
no kidding.
Things just started to fall in place that I knew it was just time for them to make it happen. For writers, I would just say there's no such thing as a stupid idea. Just keep writing until everything starts to make sense. You know what I'm saying? What you may think is dumb might not be dumb for somebody else who's reading it. You know what I'm saying?
Love that.
Just keep writing, and as you build that universe and you build those characters and you build that picture, you may take some things out, you may add some things in, but you're putting a puzzle together to your universe. And what you want to be able to do one day is speak your universe like it's so real, and you're talking it's so real to where you would think your characters might walk through the door. For entrepreneurship, the only thing I can say is, this is my number one saying. in. Don't be a tree hugger if you plan on being an entrepreneur. The fruit grows out on the limbs, so you got to let go of that tree. You got to let go of the 401k, the job, the benefit and stuff like that. And it's going to be shaky, and you're going to go out there and grab that piece of fruit. But when you get that piece of fruit, plant your own seed, build your own foundation.
There you go.
And it'll be the best thing you've ever done, because I promise you guys right now, I'm so glad I done that, and I wouldn't turn back for nothing in the world.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
No problem.
That was awesome. We love the den.
Love the den.